The sun had barely risen over the colony of Nerath, casting soft pink and orange streaks across the dusty plains. Humans had settled here decades ago, after the war with the alien factions ended. The planet was quiet now, peaceful, or at least it appeared that way. The small settlement bustled with the early morning routines of engineers, traders, and scientists, each trying to make sense of life on a world far from Earth. But today, a quiet hum of unease filled the air like the calm before a storm. It started when a child appeared at the edge of the settlement. She was unlike any human or alien anyone had ever seen. Pale blue skin shimmered faintly under the rising sun, and her large luminescent eyes held a depth of emotion that unsettled everyone who looked at her. Her long silver hair flowed around her small shoulders, and her clothes were simple, worn but clean, as if she had traveled a great distance yet carried care in every step. She walked with determination toward the center of the colony, and when the guards approached her, she spoke. "Are you my daddy?" The words were simple, almost too simple, but they carried a weight that made the soldiers freeze. Their weapons lowered, and a strange hush fell over the settlement. Humans whispered to one another. Some laughed nervously, thinking it must be a joke. Others looked at the girl with suspicion. No one knew who she was, where she came from, or what she meant. The settlement commander, Evan Cross, stepped forward. He was a quiet man in his early 30s, tall and broad-shouldered, with sharp brown eyes that seemed to notice everything. Unlike most leaders, he did not speak in commands. He observed first, measured second. He knelt down to the girl's level, keeping his voice calm and gentle. "Hello? Who are you?" The girl's gaze shifted to him. Her eyes seemed to pierce straight into his chest, searching, questioning, something almost ancient in the way she looked. She repeated her question, but this time it was softer, almost like a whisper meant only for him. "Are you my daddy?" Evan blinked. The words should have been absurd. A child calling a stranger her father? Yet he felt something stir deep in his chest, a mix of curiosity, fear, and something he couldn't name. The council of scientists and settlement elders gathered quickly. They had never seen an alien child like this before, and her arrival triggered debates and whispers about old war experiments, forbidden technologies, and lost archives. Dr. Halen, the lead biologist, scanned the girl with a portable DNA analyzer. The machine beeped and whirred, then froze. This is impossible," Dr. Halen said, voice trembling. "Her genetic makeup. It's part human," murmurs filled the room. Humans were shocked. Part human? That was unheard of. Records of hybrid children existed only in hidden files from the war, and all had failed to survive beyond birth. And yet here she was, standing in front of them, asking the same question over and over. Evan crouched beside her, unsure what to say. The girl's small hand brushed against his sleeve, and she smiled faintly, as if expecting him to answer. "You won't lie to me, right?" she asked. "You won't say no?" Evan shook his head slowly. He had no answers, and yet he couldn't deny the strange connection he felt. I don't know," he said, "but we will find out." The girl nodded, almost like she understood, and then turned her attention to the room full of humans. She repeated her question to each of them, pointing randomly at strangers. Each time the adults froze, puzzled, or nervous. None could answer her, and some even stepped back, unnerved by the intensity of her gaze. But when she looked at Evan, it was different. She leaned slightly toward him, tilting her head, waiting. Over the next few hours, Evan worked with the scientists to understand her origin. They discovered that her DNA matched fragments of both human and alien coding. It was unlike anything in their databases. No hybrid child should have survived. And yet this one had not only survived but seemed remarkably healthy. Intelligent beyond her age and aware in ways that startled even the most experienced researchers. Rumors began to spread through the settlement. Whispers of war experiments, secret projects, and forbidden knowledge filled the corridors. Some feared she was a weapon, a trap planted to test human defenses. Others thought she might be the key to peace, a bridge between humans and aliens who had once fought endlessly. Evan remained quiet through it all, focusing on the child. The girl, whose name she eventually revealed as Lyra, was not content to sit quietly. She followed Evan everywhere. When he walked to the repair bays, she trailed behind him, picking up tools and mimicking his movements. When he went to inspect power generators, she crouched nearby, watching intently, her eyes absorbing every detail. She laughed only when he smiled at her, and her small hand often brushed his sleeve without him noticing. As the day wore on, Evan uncovered old war records hidden deep in the archives. Dusty files, faded photographs, and encrypted logs told a story that made his heart tighten. Years ago, humans and aliens had collaborated in secret, attempting to create a hybrid being that could unite the species. The project had been called the Bridge. Most of the children had failed to survive, and the project was shut down, its existence erased. But now, staring at Lyra, Evan realized that one child had survived, somehow against all odds. Even as he pieced this together, trouble approached. Scouts reported unusual activity on the perimeter of the colony. A rogue alien faction, one that had never agreed to the peace treaty, was moving fast toward the settlement. They were searching for something or someone, and Evan feared it was Lyra. The alarms rang out across the colony. Settlers scrambled to secure their homes and facilities. The alien girl looked up at Evan with wide, frightened eyes. "They're coming for me," she said quietly, clutching his sleeve. Her voice trembled, and for the first time she seemed small and fragile. Evan's hand tightened around hers. He didn't answer with words. He simply nodded, understanding that her safety was now his responsibility. He shouted orders to the security teams and organized an evacuation for the settlers, all while keeping Lyra close. The first wave of attackers appeared on the horizon, sleek ships glinting in the sun, their weapons aimed at the colony. Evan and the defense teams fought back, using whatever they could to hold the aliens at bay. But Lyra's presence complicated everything. She had abilities that none of the humans understood. Energy flared faintly around her hands when she was frightened, protective shields that rippled through the air. Each time she used them, she became weaker, but every time she saved someone's life. Evan realized the truth as he held her during the chaos. She was not just a child. She was a symbol, a bridge between two worlds, a living testament to what humans and aliens could achieve if they chose cooperation over conflict. And she needed him to be strong for her, to be her protector in a world that did not yet understand her value. Hours passed. The colony endured the attack, but the rogue faction retreated, frustrated by the unexpected resistance and the inexplicable power of the small child. Settlers and soldiers alike were shaken but alive. Evan stood in the center of the chaos, Lyra safe in his arms, her small head resting against his shoulder. She whispered again, almost in a dream, "Are you my daddy?" Evan looked down at her, the weight of the day pressing against him. He could feel the truth of her words, the unspoken bond that had formed in hours of fear, of trust, and of quiet understanding. He didn't have all the answers. He didn't even know how he could possibly protect her from the dangers that still lurked beyond the colony. But he knew one thing. "Yes," he said quietly, gripping her closer. "I'll protect you. You're safe with me." For the first time, Lyra smiled without fear. The connection between them was undeniable. And as the sun set over Nerath, casting long shadows across the broken but standing settlement, Evan understood that this small, mysterious child had changed everything. She had come into their lives not just as a question, but as a challenge, a reminder of hope, of courage, and of the extraordinary potential hidden within humanity. The night fell, and with it came quiet. The settlers worked tirelessly to repair what had been damaged, unaware that history itself had begun to turn in their small colony. Evan sat outside the command center, holding Lyra in his lap, watching the stars stretch across the alien sky. Somewhere out there, more questions waited, more dangers, but for now, he focused on the small, fragile being in his arms. She looked up at him, her eyes shining. "Are you really my daddy?" she asked. Evan smiled, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. "I don't know about everything," he said softly, "but for now, yes, I am." And in the quiet of Nerath, a new story began. A story of humanity, courage, and a little alien girl who had dared to ask a question no one could answer, except him. The morning after the attack on the colony, Nerath seemed quieter than ever. The settlers moved through the streets with cautious energy, repairing broken walls, replacing shattered windows, and tending to the wounded. Lyra stayed close to Evan, her small hand gripping his sleeve as he walked through the damaged settlement. The connection between them had grown overnight, unspoken but strong. Each glance, each gentle touch seemed to reassure her that she was safe for now. Evan carried a new weight on his shoulders. The attack had been a warning, There were those out there who knew about Lyra, and they would not stop until they claimed her. He had no illusions about the danger, but he also understood that she was not just a child. They called her the heir of the Covenant, a being capable of uniting humans and aliens. She was the bridge between worlds, and with her survival came responsibility, a responsibility Evan could not ignore. As he walked, he reflected on what he had learned about Lyra's origin. Her mother had been an alien scientist who believed in peace and cooperation, secretly working with human researchers during the war. Her father had been a human soldier, a man who had volunteered to help end the conflict by creating a child that could survive in both worlds. That soldier had died before meeting his child, and now, years later, Lyra had arrived alone, carrying within her the potential to reshape history. Evan and Lyra prepared to leave the colony. Their destination was the ancient Peace Citadel, an old alien structure that had been abandoned for decades. It was a place of neutrality, where humans and aliens had once met to negotiate peace. If anyone could protect her and help explain her role, it would be there. The journey would not be easy. Hostile forces could strike at any moment, but Evan knew they had no choice. Lyra needed to reach the Citadel. They left in the early afternoon, traveling in a small, reinforced transport vehicle. Lyra sat beside Evan, her eyes scanning the horizon, constantly alert to every movement. She rarely spoke except to ask the same question she had asked since her arrival. "Are you really my daddy?" she asked softly. "Yes," Evan replied each time, his voice calm but firm. "I am." The first day of travel was uneventful, but as the sun set, shadows stretched across the alien plains and the landscape became strange and unpredictable. Rocks seemed to shift in the fading light, and distant shapes moved in ways that were unnerving. Evan tightened his grip on the vehicle's controls. Something was watching them. He had learned to trust his instincts, and tonight they screamed at him. Without warning, the transport shuddered violently. Energy blasts struck the vehicle from above, throwing them off balance. Evan managed to steer them behind a large rock formation, taking cover. Outside, small ships hovered, alien figures moving with precise coordination. The rogue faction from the previous attack had found them. They had come to reclaim Lyra. Evan activated the emergency shield, a protective field that flickered around the vehicle, but it was only a temporary solution. Lyra's small voice called from the back, "Daddy!" "I can help." Evan turned, startled. She lifted her hands and a faint glow emanated from her palms. Energy rippled through the air, forming a protective barrier that deflected several blasts. The effect was temporary and each use drained her visibly, but it saved them from immediate danger. "Stay close," Evan shouted. "Don't overuse your power." She nodded, her determination clear. Even at her small size, she radiated courage, her face set in a mixture of concentration and fear. Evan could not help but admire her strength. The child's ability was extraordinary, yet her spirit was what truly defined her. She refused to be treated as a victim, even in the face of danger. The night passed in tense silence. Evan navigated the rocky terrain with care, avoiding large settlements and patrols. Lyra slept for short periods, exhausted from using her energy, and Evan watched over her, keeping his weapons close and his senses alert. When she stirred, he spoke softly, reassuring her that they were safe. By dawn, the Citadel appeared on the horizon. Its massive towers rose above the plains, built from pale stone that reflected the early morning light. Evan felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. The Citadel was old, abandoned for decades, but it was a place of power and history. If anyone could help them understand Lyra's purpose, it would be the council that once resided there. As they approached, the gates opened seemingly on their own, revealing a courtyard that had been preserved almost perfectly. Strange energy flowed through the air, and Evan could sense the ancient presence of the alien council that had once convened here. He parked the vehicle and stepped outside, holding Lyra's hand. She looked around in awe, her eyes wide as she took in the towering structures, the intricate carvings, and the statues of alien leaders and humans standing side by side. They were not alone. Figures emerged from the shadows, aliens with pale, smooth skin, luminous eyes, and tall, slender frames. Soldiers stepped forward, weapons at the ready, but they did not attack. Instead, their leader spoke in a calm, resonant voice. "Bring the child forward," he said. "She has come far, but she must understand her destiny." Evan stepped protectively in front of Lyra. She is just a child, he said firmly. She is not a weapon. She is not yours to claim. The alien leader studied him carefully. We know, he said. And yet the child represents more than just herself. She is a symbol of unity between humans and aliens. She is the heir of the Covenant. Lyra's small hand clenched Evan's sleeve. He knelt beside her, whispering, "It's okay. You're safe with me." She nodded, taking a deep breath, and stepped forward with him. The courtyard seemed to hum as they approached the council chamber, as if the building itself recognized her presence. Inside, the chamber was vast, with high ceilings and walls covered in glowing glyphs. Holographic images of human and alien leaders flashed intermittently, telling the story of the war, the peace treaty, and the secret project that had created Lyra. Evan and Lyra stood before the council, their eyes scanning the members, all of whom observed them silently. The council spoke as one. "Child, do you know why you are here?" Lyra shook her head. "I only know that they want me," she said softly, her voice trembling slightly. "And I don't want to go alone." Evan's heart tightened. He had expected a challenge, but the honesty in her voice reminded him why he had agreed to protect her. She was not just a symbol. She was a living being with fears, hopes, and a desire to be loved. The council explained that her father had been a human soldier who volunteered to create a child that could survive in both human and alien DNA. Her mother, an alien scientist, had sacrificed everything to ensure her survival. Lyra was the result, a child meant to embody the possibility of cooperation, trust, and unity between species that had once been enemies. "But why me?" Lyra asked, her voice barely audible. "Why did they make me this way?" "Because you are special," one council member replied. "You are proof that peace is possible. You carry within you the hope of both worlds." The words filled the chamber, but they did not ease her anxiety. She looked at Evan, eyes wide and questioning. "Are you really my daddy?" She whispered, "Yes," Evan said, smiling softly. "I am now." The council members exchanged glances. They had expected her to be overwhelmed, perhaps frightened, but Lyra seemed to absorb the words with a calm determination. She understood, in her small, instinctive way, that family was not just blood. It was trust, protection, and love. As the day passed, Lyra demonstrated her abilities to the council. She could manipulate energy fields, heal minor injuries, and even create protective shields. Each use exhausted her, but it also impressed the council, who saw not a weapon, but a child capable of inspiring hope. That evening, Evan and Lyra walked through the Citadel gardens, their hands intertwined. The gardens were filled with alien flora glowing softly under the twin moons. Evan watched her laugh as she touched flowers that reacted to her presence, and he felt a deep sense of purpose. Protecting her was no longer just a responsibility, it was a choice he embraced willingly. Suddenly, distant alarms echoed through the Citadel. Scouts reported movement near the outer gates. Another faction of aliens was approaching, drawn by Lyra's energy signature. But this time, Evan was ready. The council activated protective fields, and Lyra, though tired, stood beside him, small but unyielding. Together they faced the threat, not as a child and protector, but as a team capable of defying fear. The approaching aliens halted at the outer perimeter. They observed the Citadel, then slowly retreated, unwilling to confront the combined force of humans, aliens, and the heir of the Covenant. Evan lowered his weapon, holding Lyra close. She looked up at him, tired but resolute. "We did it," she said softly. "Yes," Evan said. "And we'll keep doing it. Together." As night fell, the Citadel glowed under the moon's light. Lyra rested in Evan's arms, finally asleep, and he whispered to her, "You've done more than anyone could ask. You've shown them what hope looks like." When she stirred the next morning, she opened her eyes and smiled. "Daddy?" she asked. "Yes," Evan replied, smiling back. "Always." The story ended not with war, but with unity. The child's question, simple and innocent, had changed everything. And in the quiet halls of the Citadel, humans and aliens alike began to see a future where fear could be replaced with trust, and enemies could become family. Lyra had asked a question that no one could answer before. But with Evan,